Chapter 71 Tracking. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Sui followed by Ruolin to the deserted path behind the cafeteria, her eyes glued to her, trying to confirm if she really was reborn. Before Sui could even test the waters, Ruolin turned to her. Sui, let me ask you something. Did you deliberately push Qin Yunfeng and me to get married so soon? Sui's heart jumped, and her blood ran cold. Reborn. Reborn, by Ruolin is reborn, swallowing her shock. Sui played dumb. What do you mean? You know perfectly well that your getting married makes me look like a fool. I was hoping you wouldn't get married so soon. Now that you've got what you wanted, and you've finally snagged him, you have the nerve to come flaunt it in my face. Seeing the resentment on Sui's face, Ruolin hesitated. Back then, Sui had approached Qin Yunfeng alone, asking him to postpone the wedding until they returned home for the spring festival, giving their families time to weigh in. Could it really not be because of her? But then why did everything change after Sui showed up? Ruolin frowned, then something clicked. In her previous life, Sui had never met them at the gate. Qin Yunfeng had gone out alone to see her off. This time, she and Qin Yunfeng ran into Sui at the gate after seeing a movie in town, and things blew up. So, Sui's arrival was different this time around. Ruolin probed. Let me ask you this, did anything happen to you on the way here this time? What do you mean? Sui acted confused. Didn't I tell you when I got here? My luggage was stolen. Ruolin eyed her suspiciously. Besides that, anything else? She vividly recalled her mother-in-law secretly hiring someone to push Sui into the river on the way. Sui had arrived after being rescued by some villagers and recuperating for a few days. Sui scoffed. Why are you so morbid? My stuff got stolen, isn't that enough for you? What else do you want to happen to me? Ruolin, seeing Sui's confidence, realized she wasn't lying. That's when it dawned on her. This time, the old lady's goons had only managed to steal her stuff. It's all that damn old lady's incompetence that caused this mess. Thinking of the mother-in-law/daughter-in-law feud from her previous life, Ruolin seethed. Now that she was married to Qin Yunfeng, she'd bide her time until spring festival to deal with the old lady. This time, she'd make sure the mother and daughter didn't have it so easy. Without another word, Ruolin turned and left, leaving Sui staring after her, utterly bewildered. They got married, sealed the deal, and Ruolin's reborn. Everything's changed. Why haven't I gone back yet? Oh, well, guess I'm stuck here. It's all the same wherever you end up. Zhou Jinchuan had sensed something off about Ruolin ever since he ran into her in the hall. It was like she was a totally different person. After going home and mulling it over, he had a bad feeling. He immediately went looking for Sui at the cafeteria. When he learned that Ruolin had just pulled Sui aside, his unease grew. He hurried to find them. He'd found Sui just as he overheard her talking. So, Ruolin's rebirth was exactly what he'd imagined. The whole thing was absurd, bizarre, but then again, he could hear Sui's thoughts. Wasn't that ridiculous enough? Hearing her say she couldn't go back eased his worries. He quietly turned around and left. Ever since learning about Ruolin's rebirth, Sui had focused all her energy on the woman. According to the original story, Ruolin would stumble upon a jade bracelet containing a spiritual spring space within days of being reborn. If that bracelet fell into her hands, it would spell disaster. In the original book, Sui hadn't even done anything, and things had ended terribly with the current bad blood between them. Would Ruolin eat her alive if she had that kind of power? Since she couldn't go back, she needed a plan for the future. One day, Ruolin walked out of the compound alone after lunch. Sui, who was heading back to the dorm, spotted her and quietly followed. Ruolin was walking fast. When she got to town, she went straight to the post office to make a phone call. Sui was puzzled. They had phones at the base. Why was she sneaking around to make a call? Something was definitely up. Sui found a good hiding spot and listened in. Ruolin was calling her family back in Beijing. As soon as someone picked up, Ruolin burst out, telling them to hurry up and buy a courtyard house. The person on the other end was stunned. thinking Bai Ruolin had cracked, but Bai Ruolin just kept urging them, "Dad, Mom, trust me on this. Just listen to me. I'm right. Girl, are you crazy after getting married? We already have a house for you here. Even if you come back, you'll get a share of the house. Why would we buy some rundown old place?" No matter how much she tried to persuade them, it was no use. Bai Ruolin was frustrated to death. Too bad she didn't have much money or access to Beijing. She hated knowing about the opportunity but being powerless to act on it. Hanging up, Bai Ruolin slumped. Then she went to the stamp window. "I'd like 10 sets of the Zodiac commemorative stamps, please." Sui, hiding in the corner, blinked. So this sister wanted to cash in on her rebirth. Good idea. But Sui remembered that the 81 rooster stamp wasn't worth as much as the 80 monkey stamp. Last year, she'd seen someone selling monkey stamps at the black market and had bought a few. Back then, the monkey stamp, originally 8 cents, was going for 50 cents each. Even though the rooster stamp wasn't as valuable as the monkey, at least it had just been released and only cost 8 cents each. So, after Bai Ruolin bought hers, Sui immediately stepped up and asked for 10 sets. The clerk, almost beaming, sold her 20 sets without hesitation. He'd been worried he wouldn't meet his quota this year, but he'd just sold a boatload of stamps in one go. After buying the stamps, Sui followed Bai Ruolin to the street. The town had fully embraced small business, and with the new year approaching and the weather mild, people were setting up stalls to sell small goods and second-hand items. Bai Ruolin seemed to be looking for something, eventually stopping at one stall. "Hey, you wouldn't happen to be selling a monkey stamp, would you?" "How much?" The stall owner, a middle-aged man, greeted her warmly, glad for the business. "Sure do. $1 each." "Why so much?" Chapter 72, Following Behind to Pick Up Leaks. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Bai Ruolin was already annoyed by the vendor's smarmy smile. Now, his outrageous price made her even angrier. "Didn't these go for 8 cents a piece last year?" The vendor just grinned, unfazed. "Yep, they did. So, why didn't you buy some then, sweetheart?" "You." Bai Ruolin shot him a glare, but she didn't want to cause a scene. She'd checked several nearby stalls selling used goods, and this was the only one with monkey stamps. Bai Ruolin figured she couldn't invest in a house right now anyway, so why miss out on the monkey stamps? She softened her tone. "I want them all." The vendor's face lit up. "Great." After handing over the stamps, the vendor reached into a box behind him. "Hey, I got something special here, wanna take a look?" Bai Ruolin hesitated. "Show me first." The vendor cracked open the box, then quickly snapped it shut. "This is the real deal. Truth be told, I snagged it in Beijing years ago. Kept it stashed away, never had a chance to sell it. It's only now that things are getting better that I dare to part with it. I'm only showing it to you, 'cause you got such fair skin, look like the type who can pull this off. Wouldn't show it to just anyone." Bai Ruolin glanced at it and felt a strange tug. The bracelet looked warm and clear, a real head-turner. "How much?" she asked. 200, firm. Bai Ruolin gasped. "Are you trying to rob me?" The vendor chuckled nervously. 200 ain't bad at all. Something this nice would run you 500 or 600 in Beijing. If you're worried about the quality, we can find a place to sit down, take a good look, and then swap the cash for the goods. Bai Ruolin fell silent. Honestly, she thought the price was about right, but the money her family sent last month, plus all her savings, went towards the wedding to make Qin Yunfeng look good. Otherwise, she would have bought it without a second thought. Bai Ruolin bit her lip. "How about 100? "Nah, I said no haggling." Seeing he wouldn't budge, Bai Ruolin scoffed. "Who knows if you bought it or stole it? Could be hot goods. Otherwise, why not sell it in Beijing for 500 or 600? Seeing she couldn't afford it, the guy decided to throw shade. He spat. "If you can't afford it, forget it. Quit bad-mouthing me. Get out of here." With the vendor turning hostile, Bai Ruolin turned and stormed off. Sui, who'd been lurking and enjoying the drama, hurried over. The moment she saw the vendor pull out the jade bracelet, her heart started pounding. She just knew it had to be the bracelet Bai Ruolin stumbled upon in her past life. She'd thought for sure Bai Ruolin would snatch it up, but they suddenly started bickering during the bargaining. But then again, in the original story, Bai Ruolin was single when she was reborn. She had savings and money from her family every month, so buying a jade bracelet wasn't a problem, but now, it seemed like all her money had been sunk into the wedding. Qin Yunfeng, the once high and mighty Bai Ruolin, just got reamed out by a vendor for being broke, and then stormed off in a huff. Sui rushed up to the stall. "Hey, can I see that bracelet you just showed?" The vendor saw one girl leave, and another, even prettier one, approach, and this girl was smiling, unlike the other one with the resting bitch face. His scowl faded. "Sure, take a look, but I'm gonna be straight with you. This bracelet is $200, no haggling. If you can't swing it, don't even bother." Sui waved her hands. "Hey, if you're being honest, how can I even think about haggling?" "No haggling." The vendor opened the box again. "Go ahead, take a look." Sui grabbed it, took a quick peek, and immediately closed it. "Okay, I'll take it." "You will?" The vendor was surprised. "You're not gonna take a closer look at something that costs $200? We can find a spot where you can get a better look." Sui shook her head. "Isn't buying jade all about trusting your gut?" She pulled out her handmade wallet, then she pulled out all the big 10 yuan notes inside. "Just so happens I got the cash right here." He was stunned while counting. He counted again in disbelief. "I could have sworn there were 200 here last month, how come there are only 160 left?" Sui gave the vendor a sheepish look, and the vendor looked back with a confused expression. "Hey, I really didn't want to haggle. I guess I forgot to empty my pockets when I changed clothes today. If you don't believe me, wait for me to go back and get the rest." Forget it, forget it. You seem like an honest girl. 160 is good enough." It wasn't that he couldn't accept a discount, it was just that the last girl had such a bad attitude. The first thing she said was that the thing was stolen goods. How could she be as honest as this girl? Luckily, he'd only paid 50 for this thing, so selling it for 160 was still a pretty sweet deal. Gotta know when to quit. Sui, seeing he was willing to knock the price down to 160, paid him with a mountain of thanks. To keep Bai Ruolin from coming back after regretting her decision, Sui added, "Hey, could you do me a favor? I bought this bracelet with my own money without telling my family. If anyone asks about it, could you pretend you didn't sell it to me?" The vendor nodded. "Sure thing, mum's the word." Hearing this, Sui happily took the bracelet and left. Meanwhile, Bai Ruolin was starting to have second thoughts. She felt like she'd missed out on something important. Even though she'd only glanced at the bracelet, she couldn't stop thinking about it on the way back. She just had a feeling that if she didn't buy it, she'd regret it forever, thinking about how she hadn't bought any jewelry for the wedding, and most of the money had gone into decorating their new house. She felt even more bitter. She'd never felt so restricted when buying stuff before getting married. Now, she just wanted to buy a little something for herself, but she had to think and worry about it, and some grungy vendor had the gall to laugh at her for being broke. Suddenly, Bai Ruolin felt a surge of anger. She had to find a way to get that bracelet back. Bai Ruolin rounded up all her own money, then snuck into Qin Yunfeng's stash. Adding it all up, she barely had 100 or so. Determined, she took off her watch. If worst came to worst, she could use the watch as payment. That should be enough. After gathering the money, Bai Ruolin jumped on her bike and sped towards town. Just as she was leaving, she ran into Sui coming back from town. Bai Ruolin rolled her eyes and pedaled away as fast as she could. Chapter 73. The Golden Finger is coming. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Seeing Sue rushing off like that, I knew she'd gone back on her word. A wave of dread washed over me. I hurried back to the dorm and locked the door. Then, I pulled out the jade bracelet. After examining it closely, I couldn't see anything special about it. Remembering how the heroine in the book discovered the space, I grabbed a sewing needle, closed my eyes, and pricked my finger. When I opened my eyes, the drop of blood was instantly absorbed by the bracelet. The once dull jade suddenly became incredibly clear. I quickly reached out, and the bracelet flashed again, emitting a purple light. Then, it vanished. Before I could even gasp, I felt a lightness and tumbled into an unfamiliar space. The space was vast, stretching endlessly, and barren, without a single blade of grass. But there was a spring, constantly bubbling. Could this be the spiritual spring water from the book? The stuff that turned the heroine into a goddess and saved old man Zhou? Hesitantly, I cupped my hands and took a sip. It tasted fresh, with a sweet aftertaste. I'd been dealing with a cold and stuffy nose for days. After drinking this, my head felt clearer, and my nose felt much more open. I quickly muttered exit and found myself back in my room. Next, I experimented with storing items. Again, all I had to do was think store, and the items vanished. I just messed around for a bit. Seeing how late it was, I quickly tidied up and headed to the cafeteria. Just as I reached the bottom of the stairs, I ran into Ruolin, who was rushing back from town. Sui, hold up, that I raised an eyebrow. Had her brother ratted me out? So what if she knew? Besides, Ruolin just wanted the bracelet. She didn't know about the space, so I decided to ignore her. Seeing that I wasn't stopping, Ruolin got furious and blocked my way with her bike. I called you, did you hear me? Move it or lose it. You know the drill. You, Ruolin's eyes blazed. Tell me, did you go to town and buy a jade bracelet? Jade bracelet? What jade bracelet? I feigned ignorance. Ruolin patiently explained, at the west end of town. Today, a guy was selling old stuff. I saw a jade bracelet I loved. I went to get money, and someone bought it while I was gone. When I went back, I saw you coming back from town. Don't tell me you didn't buy it. That I burst out laughing. Did you lose your mind when you got married? Can't I go to town? Just because I went to town, I must have bought it. Ruolin pursed her lips. Isn't it because you always snatch my things? Qin did the same thing, so did the jade bracelet. That I scoffed. Please. What's going on with Qin Yunfeng? You grabbed the trash I threw out and treated it like treasure. Do you think everyone has such bad taste? How's married life treating you? Ruolin saw me looking at her, a mocking smile on my face. A bad feeling crept in. Could it be that Qin Yunfeng really gave her what she didn't want? No way. Ruolin snapped back to reality. I came to ask about the jade bracelet, not to talk about Qin Yunfeng. That I took another breath. Who was the one who brought up Qin Yunfeng first? Ruolin's face darkened. To get the bracelet back, she had to swallow her anger and said, if you did buy the jade bracelet, can't I pay you more? That she pulled out what she prepared from her pocket. I have $100 here, and a watch that's worth a lot. You bought it for 200, I'll give you these, and you make a profit. I really like that jade bracelet. Just give it to me. That I threw my arms up helplessly and rolled up my sleeves. Look at me. If I'd spent that much on a bracelet, wouldn't I be wearing it? Besides, I only make 20-something bucks a month. Do you think I'm crazy enough to drop 200 on that thing? Ruolin was speechless. Did she really not buy it? All she did was ask the vendor about it, but he wouldn't say who bought it. She just guessed it was me. She thought I saw something she liked and tried to buy it to show off, but she forgot that I'm broke. Even if I saved for months, I wouldn't be able to buy a bracelet just to be spiteful. If she bought it, she would have flaunted it in front of herself long ago. Maybe she was overthinking it. Seeing she was giving up, I turned and walked away. Ruolin stood there for a while, upset that she didn't get the bracelet. She wasn't ready to give up yet. After struggling, she rode her bike back to town. This time, Ruolin learned from her mistakes and didn't go straight to the vendor. She quietly went to a nearby stall. She gave the other woman $1. Ma'am, can I ask you something? Someone bought a bracelet at the stall across from you this afternoon. Did you see who it was? The woman took the $1 and happily told her everything she saw. She was a pretty girl. Taller, thinner, and fairer than you. Her hair was darker and longer too. By Ruolin, just tell me. Why are you insulting me? Ma'am, are you sure? I'm sure, but I'm not sure. They were being sneaky. I watched carefully. The girl took out a stack of bills. By Ruolin's breathing quickened in anger. That little bitch Sui lied to her again. By Ruolin immediately rode her bike back, planning to go to the cafeteria to confront me again. She never thought that she had run back and forth to the town 3 times today, and she was so tired that she couldn't even pedal her bicycle. By the time we arrived at the compound, it was already dark. By Ruolin felt that if she went there directly now, Sui would definitely not admit it, since she wasn't wearing it when she left. She must have hidden it in the dormitory. Thinking of this, Ruolin sneaked downstairs to Suyi's dormitory. She wanted to find a way to go in and have a look while no one was in the dormitory at this time. When I walked to Suyi's door, I observed secretly for a while and found that her window was not locked. Although the window is not big, if she takes off her cotton-padded clothes, she should be able to get in. By Ruolin felt that even God was helping her. I quickly took off my cotton-padded clothes and got into the house. I searched the house for a long time, even under the bed, but couldn't find it. By Ruolin was so angry that she wanted to take out everything in her house and throw it away. I am also afraid that it will be found on myself. It's not worth it for these worthless things. Thinking of this, By Ruolin suddenly had an idea and quickly took out all the 100 yuan and watch she had on her body, wrap it in a handkerchief with your name embroidered on it and carefully hide it under the mattress. Then he restored the messed up place to its original state, and then got out of the window again. Chapter 74, Catching the Thief. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Sue was slammed in the cafeteria. When she finally got off work, she couldn't wait to get back to her dorm. All she could think about was exploring that space. She planned to lock the door and really dig into it, but when she opened the door, something felt off. She always tucked the sheets in super tight, but now they were all yanked out. Sue checked the door and window and found a faint footprint on the windowsill, definitely a woman's shoe size. Sue immediately thought of Ruolin when she left earlier. Ruolin had looked pissed. Could she have snuck in to look for that jade bracelet while everyone was at dinner? She must have lost the bracelet, but who knows what she'd do out of spite. Thinking about it, Sue quickly searched the room again. Sure enough, she found a handkerchief under the quilt. Inside was the watch she'd seen that afternoon and a wad of bills. Sue was trying to figure out what was going on, when a loud knock came at the door, followed by Ruolin's screech, "Comrade Sue, open up." It sounded like a whole crowd was out there. Sue didn't hesitate. She tossed the handkerchief, money, and watch into the space. When she opened the door, the hallway was packed with rubberneckers. Ruolin pushed forward and grabbed Sue's arm. "Comrade Sue, I know you took my money and watch. Give them back." Sue pretended to be clueless. "What watch? What are you talking about?" Ruolin bit her lip. "Don't play dumb. I ran into you downstairs this afternoon, and we chatted. When I got back, my watch and all my cash were gone. Comrade Sue, if you need money, I'll lend you 100, but that watch was a birthday gift from my parents. It means a lot to me. Please give it back." Sue sneered. "Are you saying I stole your watch? How could I have taken it off your wrist without you knowing?" Ruolin blinked, then quickly recovered. "You asked to see my watch. I took it off so you could try it on, but then I thought it was too cold, so I didn't put it back on and just shoved it in my pocket." Sue looked her up and down. "That's a weird story. Everyone here knows we can't stand each other. You're saying we were chatting? You even let me try on your watch." Ruolin pursed her lips. "Lots of people saw us downstairs." Sue scoffed. "Did someone see you take off your watch, or did someone see me steal it? What proof do you have?" Sue finally understood what Ruolin was up to. She deliberately stepped closer, curious how this would play out. Sure enough, Ruolin's voice went up an octave. "The watch and money are in your room. Just let me search, and the truth will come out." Sue pretended to be furious. "You have no proof. You can't just search my room." Ruolin puffed up, seeing Su Yi's reaction. You're hiding something, that's why you're scared. A thief like you doesn't belong here. We should kick you out. That the moment Ruolin said that, Yi Xiaowu elbowed his way through the crowd, seeing Su Yi surrounded, he knew he couldn't do much. He quickly turned and ran to Zhou Jinchuan's office. The crowd had been listening, and now that the argument seemed stuck, they started to chime in. Some said Ruolin was going too far, barging into people's rooms. Others said that if Su Yi was innocent, she should let them search to prove it. Unless she was scared they'd actually find something. Qin Yunfeng squeezed through the hallway. Su Yi, Ruolin's money and watch really are missing. I helped her look. If you took them, just give them back. I know you're still mad at us, so you're just messing with her, not stealing. Su Yi laughed, but without humor. You two are a match made in hell. You're both completely shameless. Fine, since everyone's here, I'll let you search my room to prove I'm innocent, but if you don't find anything, I'm going to get some satisfaction. How are you going to explain this? Ruolin immediately shouted, no ifs. You took it. It's hidden in your room. I'm not scared of any bet. Su Yi gave her a look. Okay, if I didn't take your stuff, you're going to kneel down and apologize to me in public, and clean the toilets in our building for a whole month. Qin Yunfeng hesitated, sensing that Su Yi was confident, maybe even telling the truth. He started to pull Ruolin aside to get the full story, but Ruolin was too excited to stop. She wanted to rush inside right then. She agreed instantly, okay, deal. And if you took it, you're out of here. We don't want thieves in our community. She tried to shove past Su Yi. Before she could even open the door, Su Yi yanked her back. Hold on. Keep your grubby hands off my stuff. If you want to search, get some neutral people to do it. Who knows if you'll try to plant something to frame me. Ruolin sneered. Still trying to weasel out of it, huh? Fine, let someone else search. She pulled in two women from the crowd. The others waited in the hallway. The two women searched carefully, but didn't find a watch. They came out. We didn't see any watch. No cash either. Ruolin gasped. That's impossible. Maybe she's hiding it on her. Su Yi spread her arms. I've been searched. What more do you want? The three of them went inside to check Su Yi's pockets. Still nothing. Ruolin wouldn't give up, even accusing the searchers of covering for Su Yi. The two women were furious. Comrade Bai, you're way out of line. Ruolin, desperate, barged in herself. She headed straight for the bed, but couldn't find anything. This can't be happening. Where is it? Ruolin was sweating bullets. She started searching the room all over again. She found a box tucked away in a hidden compartment in the cabinet. Ruolin was sure Su Yi had stashed the watch and money in the box, maybe even the jade bracelet. She excitedly ripped it open. Chapter 75: A Fatal Blow. You are listening at novelfull.audio. When the box was opened, there was a watch inside. Not mine. Ruolin's heart sank, and her face paled. How could this be happening? Su Yi smirked. Well, find it. Looks like that watch isn't yours after all, huh? Ruolin gripped the box, forcing the words out. It's the watch I lost. The crowd outside couldn't see clearly, but they heard that the watch had been found. A murmur went through the crowd. Su Yi, surprised by her audacity, glared at her. Want to take a closer look? Are you absolutely sure it's your watch? Panic flickered in Ruolin's eyes, but she nodded firmly. It's mine. Of course, I'd recognize my own watch, wouldn't I? Su Yi turned to Qin Yunfeng. Comrade Qin, Comrade Bai says this watch of mine belongs to her. Why don't you take a look too? Qin Yunfeng stepped forward, glanced at the box in Ruolin's hand, then he looked at Ruolin with a strange expression. Seeing her staring intently at him, he looked away, mumbling, I can't really remember, but it looks like it could be. Su Yi scoffed and turned to the onlookers. Did everyone hear that? They found a watch in my room and decided it was hers. So, I want to ask Comrade Bai, where did you buy this watch? By Ruolin pouted. In Beijing, of course. They don't sell them around here. Sui nodded. So you didn't notice that my watch is from overseas, with a line of English on it? It's not even sold in China. And you have the nerve to say you bought it. By Ruolin blinked, glanced down, then said, I had someone buy it at a foreign exchange store. You've never been to Beijing, so you wouldn't know they sell foreign watches there. Sui snapped the box shut. Then tell me, what does the English say? And how many diamonds are on the face? By Ruolin was speechless, her face reddening. After a moment, she blurted out, I don't know any English. Just some squiggles. And as for the diamonds, a bunch. I didn't count. Sui, hearing the lies, couldn't help but laugh. She opened the box again, taking out the watch. Look everyone, the diamonds on this watch are only on the band. There aren't any on the face at all. The crowd surged forward, eager to see. Sure enough, the watch face was bare. So, by Ruolin's lying. I know, right? Deputy Commander Qin said it was his wife's. This is a flat-out lie. Qin Yinfeng was stunned. He quickly backpedaled. I couldn't see clearly when it was in the box. Now that I take a good look, I know something's wrong. This isn't Ruolin's. She just made a mistake. By Ruolin, catching on, quickly chimed in, her face flushed. Yes, I made a mistake. The dial looked similar to mine, but the band is different. She peered at the watch. It looked incredibly expensive. How could Sui have such a fancy watch? And from overseas? Realizing she was exposed, she decided to muddy the waters. She yelled, even if it's not mine, it can't be Suyi's. She probably stole it from somewhere. Why don't you explain yourself? If this gets out of hand, we'll call the cops. You won't like that. The crowd, distracted by the watch, had been wondering how Sui could afford it. Since she wasn't explaining, they started to speculate. Sui had been waiting to see by Ruolin's next move. Now that things were escalating, the better. She'd finish it with one decisive blow, and let her talk. The atmosphere was at a fever pitch. Thanks to Bai Ruolin, she grabbed the watch. Comrade Bai has quite the imagination. What a waste to stay in our troupe. You belong in the movies. This performance is better than a three-ring circus. First, Comrade Bai claimed she lost $100 and a watch. She made a bet with me, then searched my room. Since I didn't steal her things, she should be publicly punished as agreed. That means kneeling down, apologizing, and cleaning the public toilets for a month. Second, she found a watch Mr. Mo gave me and insisted it was hers. That's slander, even worse than before. Third, seeing she was losing, she started slinging mud to get out of trouble. More slander, plain and simple. Seeing Suyi's clear explanation, the crowd nodded. That's right, Comrade Bai just kept slandering Comrade Su. Good thing Comrade Su is smart, or she'd be done for. Some people have no shame, just talking about themselves and blaming others when caught. Aren't you embarrassed? She's a liar. What do you expect? By Ruolin, seeing the crowd siding with Sui, backed away, clutching Qin Yinfeng's arm. She'd wanted to use this to drive Sui out of the compound. She'd personally put the watch and money under the mattress, eagerly waiting for Sui to return. She was going to call everyone to catch the thief the moment she walked in. In that short amount of time, there was no way she could have hidden the watch and money. Qin Yinfeng's face was stormy. He glared at Bai Ruolin, asking, "What's going on here?" Bai Ruolin bit her lip. She said Mr. Mo gave her that watch, but who knows if she stole it. Why would he give her such an expensive gift if they weren't having an affair? Who can prove it? Before Bai Ruolin finished, Zhou Jinchuan's voice came from the end of the corridor. I can. Zhou Jinchuan had already arrived when Yi Xiaowu came to him. He rushed over, but when he got there, he saw Suyi's calm face and knew she had a plan. She was letting them dig their own grave, and when she spoke, it was a checkmate. Zhou Jinchuan gave Sui an admiring look, then stood beside her, facing the crowd. He said, Mr. Mo gave her that watch as a thank you. Comrade Su didn't want to accept it, so Mr. Mo asked me to talk her into it. If Comrade Bai doesn't believe me, then call Mr. Mo right now. Chapter 76 by Ruolin's Punishment. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Bai Ruolin had been so sure Zhou Jinchuan would eventually win, then bam. He exposed his own scandal and even volunteered to vouch for Su Yi. Her heart sank. She'd hoped to use this opportunity to kick Su Yi out of the compound. Instead, she just embarrassed Zhou Jinchuan and made herself look bad. All her arrogance had vanished. Now she just shook her head, pleading, "No, don't call. I misunderstood. I messed up." Qin Yunfeng looked mortified. That evening, Bai Ruolin got home and burst into tears, telling him about her missing watch and money. She made sure to mention she'd been at Su Yi's place right before she noticed they were gone, implying Su Yi must have swiped them. Qin Yunfeng searched the house and, sure enough, his cash and watch were missing. That's when he panicked and went with her to confront Su Yi, but things just kept spiraling out of control. He'd sensed something was wrong earlier and wanted her to back down, but she wouldn't listen. Now, seeing Zhou Jinchuan about to call Mr. Mo, he rushed to block him. "Captain Zhou, Su Yi is innocent. No need to bother Mr. Mo." Ruolin just panicked and made a mistake. "She'll apologize to Comrade Su, like we agreed." Bai Ruolin seized the chance to push in front of Su Yi. "I'm sorry, Comrade Su. I was wrong. You didn't take my stuff. That watch just looks a little like mine, so I got confused. I didn't realize Mr. Mo gave it to you." Su Yi curled her lip. "Is that your apology? Sounds pretty insincere." Bai Ruolin bit her lip and lowered her head. "Comrade Su, I'm sorry, I was wrong. I apologize." "I'm really sorry." That she bowed deeply. Su Yi scoffed. "Your memory isn't so great either, huh?" Bai Ruolin knew she meant the kneeling thing, but she couldn't bring herself to kneel in front of everyone. Tears streaming, she looked at Zhou Jinchuan. "Captain Zhou, we're the army. We can't force someone to kneel and apologize, can we?" Zhou Jinchuan glanced at Su Yi, guessing she didn't really want Bai Ruolin to kneel publicly. "It could easily backfire," he said. "You agreed to it. I can't force you. Since you don't want to, then you're cleaning the toilets for 2 months. And furthermore." Bai Ruolin nearly fainted when she heard about the toilet duty. Luckily, Qin Yunfeng caught her. Zhou Jinchuan rolled his eyes at the couple. "Cleaning toilets is just the punishment for falsely accusing Su Yi of theft. But you also insisted Mr. Mo's watch was yours, and even after being proven wrong, you still claimed Su Yi stole it. I'm not sure we can keep someone like you in the army. All performances and activities are suspended, pending further punishment from Captain Deng." Everyone was thrilled to hear Bai Ruolin would be scrubbing toilets and even happier when Zhou Jinchuan announced her suspension. Seeing that everything was settled, people started heading back to their rooms. Bai Ruolin, however, was furious about her suspension and the impending consequences. Her vision blurred, and she actually passed out. Seeing her condition, Qin Yunfeng decided to take her home. Instead of making her apologize to Su Yi after everyone left, only Zhou Jinchuan and Yi Xiaowu remained. Yi Xiaowu was still fuming about the whole situation. Even though Su Yi had been cleared, Zhou Jinchuan also felt Su Yi had been unfairly targeted and probably needed some comforting words. But Su Yi seemed more interested in the space. She exchanged a few words with them and then sent them on their way. Seeing her so carefree, Zhou Jinchuan couldn't help but wonder, why did she seem so happy? Could it be because of Bai Ruolin's suspension? Come to think of it, that made sense. He decided to call Commander Deng immediately to explain the situation. Before anyone else could try to plead for Bai Ruolin after Zhou Jinchuan and Yi Xiaowu left, Su Yi quickly locked the door and entered the space. Everything was as it had been, except now it contained Bai Ruolin's watch and 100 yuan. Well, if she was practically handing it to her, why wouldn't she take it? She was heading home soon anyway, and she'd been worrying about travel money. Meanwhile, Qin Yunfeng had just carried Bai Ruolin back home. She slowly woke up. Qin Yunfeng practically dumped her on a chair. Talk about bad timing. He was sweating bullets from carrying her all that way, and she woke up the second they got home. Seeing the anger on his face, Ruolin started crying again. Yunfeng, are you blaming me too? Qin Yunfeng had been holding his temper all the way back. Hearing her even ask that, he snapped, blaming you? I wouldn't dare. If you hadn't told me Su Yi stole our money, I wouldn't have blindly followed you over there. Speaking of which, I have to ask, if the money was stolen downstairs from Su Yi's dorm, why did you bring all our money, including my share, with you to look for her? And why did you start accusing Su Yi without a word when we got to the dorm? Ruolin felt overwhelmed by the rapid-fire questions. Yunfeng, do you regret marrying me? Qin Yunfeng just sneered and stared at her in silence, his cold gaze pierced by Ruolin's heart. She'd seen through him a long time ago, but it still stung to be treated like this, whether his motives were pure or not in her last life. At least he had loved her. Suddenly, Ruolin felt a pang of panic. Now that she was suspended, she needed to stay on Qin Yunfeng's good side to remain in the army. Only then could she destroy Su Yi completely. With that thought, Ruolin softened her expression and looked at Qin Yunfeng with a pitiful gaze. Yunfeng, I messed up today and got you involved, but our money and my watch really were stolen. But don't worry too much. I'll call home tomorrow and ask them to send more money. We're going back home soon anyway. If they send extra, we can buy stuff and throw a wedding banquet. Also, I'll talk to Political Commissar Wang about my suspension and try to minimize the impact on you. Qin Yunfeng noticed her sudden change of attitude and the fact that she was already planning to buy things to take home. His mood improved slightly. My allowance will come in a few days, so I'll have some money to go back home. It's just that this suspension is urgent. What if Captain Zhou and Captain Deng won't budge? Why don't you talk to Political Commissar Wang now? Chapter 77 Returning Home for Spring Festival. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ruolin had been throwing a fit all night and was completely wiped out. She didn't want to go see Political Commissar Wang so late, but Qin Yunfeng's words made sense. She forced herself to her feet. It's so late, I'm scared to go alone. Will you come with me? Qin Yunfeng just pursed his lips. This is the army, what's to be scared of? Besides, I'd just be dead weight. At best, I'd just get yelled at too. Ruolin just stared at him, furious. Ruolin stormed out, filled with resentment toward Su Yi and dissatisfaction with Qin Yunfeng. Even though it was a winter night, she didn't even notice the cold. After all, nothing could be colder than her heart at that moment. Ruolin arrived at Political Commissar Wang's door and knocked quickly. Political Commissar Wang's wife, Shenli, answered. Ruolin called out timidly, Aunt Li, I'm here to see Uncle Wang. Shenli gave her a disapproving look. Couldn't it wait until morning? It's so late. Despite her complaint, she opened the door and let her in. Ruolin didn't dare say another word. Shenli had always been cold to her, and she only came here when she absolutely had to. As soon as she saw Political Commissar Wang, Ruolin burst into tears and knelt down. Political Commissar Wang was also annoyed that she'd come so late, but when he saw her crying like that, he softened. What's going on? Get up and tell me what's wrong. Shenli was also taken aback and quickly helped her up to sit on the sofa. She sighed and poured her a cup of hot water. What happened? Ruolin quickly recounted the evening's events. I only saw Su Yi before I lost my things, and then they were gone. And Mr. Mo's watch looks a lot like mine. I got excited and jumped to conclusions. Now Captain Zhou is siding with her and wants to suspend me and everything. Political Commissar Wang was furious. That's outrageous. It was just a misunderstanding, a petty squabble between young women. How can they suspend her for no reason? Besides. Shenli coughed, cutting him off. She smiled thinly and said, Ruolin, you made a big deal out of nothing. You just lost something. Besides, can foreign watches really look that similar to domestic ones? Shouldn't you recognize your own watch at a glance? You wear it every day. Ruolin felt guilty and didn't dare say anything. Political Commissar Wang calmed down. Your aunt is right. You were wrong, very wrong. I think you should stop performing for a while. The spring festival is coming. Just relax and enjoy the new year, and we'll figure things out when you get back. By Ruolin panicked. Uncle Wang, but there are so many performances around the holidays. I had several lined up with other troops. What am I supposed to do if I stop? Shenli scoffed. It's not up to you. Besides, the art troupe will survive without you. Right now, you should be thinking about how to keep your job. Political Commissar Wang nodded in agreement. Your aunt is right. First thing in the morning, go find Director Deng, admit your mistakes, write a self-criticism, and put a stop to your performances. I'll pull some strings to get you a stay of execution. After the new year, once things have calmed down, I'll find a way to get you back in the art troupe. Seeing that Shenli wasn't budging, Ruolin knew she wouldn't get a better outcome. She nodded and agreed. Ruolin, who was supposed to be on stage, was now stuck sweeping the dormitory building's toilets every day. Naturally, she was not happy. Every time she swept Su Yi's floor, she wanted to smear feces all over Su Yi's room. She couldn't understand where Su Yi had hidden the 100 yuan and her watch, and the jade bracelet was obviously bought by Su Yi, so why hadn't she worn it even once? Ruolin obsessed over these things constantly. One day, when everyone was out, she sneaked to Su Yi's window again. She wanted to find a chance to sneak into the room and look around, but the window was locked from the inside. That damn woman had installed a lock. Ruolin trembled with rage and refused to sweep the toilet the next day. Qin Yunfeng had to repeatedly nag her. Ruolin gritted her teeth, masking her anger and pretending to be sick. I haven't been feeling well lately. Could you cover my shift just this once? Qin Yunfeng looked annoyed. I'm not going into the women's dormitory. Besides, it wouldn't look right for me to be cleaning the toilet. You better get over there. You'll get in trouble if you're late and someone finds out. Ruolin barely stopped herself from blowing up. Fine. I'm going, okay. Qin Yunfeng nodded. After you clean the toilet, go take a shower. Don't bring that stink home. Lately, I feel like the whole house reeks. Ruolin was furious. Half a month barely passed. Seeing that the spring festival was approaching, Ruolin urged Qin Yunfeng to request leave for a family visit. They needed to return to their hometown early to hold the wedding banquet. The sooner they left, the sooner she could stop cleaning toilets. Meanwhile, Su Yi had already asked Master Ma for leave and planned to return early to transfer her household registration. Before leaving, Su Yi worried that Zhou Jinchuan wouldn't be able to take care of the two kids by himself. She helped prepare some dumplings for the new year, wrapped them up, and froze them outside overnight. Yi Xiaowu and Yi Nuanyuan didn't want Su Yi to leave, but they knew she was going back to transfer her household registration, so they were very obedient and didn't complain. They just kept reminding her to be careful. After thoroughly prepping the kids, Su Yi packed a few clothes and, with the documents issued by the army, prepared to head home. There was no train station in the nearby county. To take the train, she had to go to the city, and there was only one train back to her hometown each morning. She went to the city a day early and planned to stay overnight. It would also be a good chance to see if there was anything to buy. Although it was in the northwest, it was the biggest city in the region, and the things sold there were much more diverse than those in the county. Maybe she could find something to sell and make some money back home. With that in mind, Su Yi quickly packed her things and prepared to catch a ride to the city early in the morning. Just as she was leaving the dormitory, she ran into Zhou Jinchuan driving by. He stopped the car beside Su Yi, rolled down the window, and called out, "Get in." Su Yi was confused. "Captain Zhou, are you headed out?" Zhou Jinchuan just grunted. "I just happen to have something to do in the city today. I'll give you a ride." Chapter 78, The Cunning Man. You are listening at novelfull.audio. As soon as Zhou Jinchuan spoke, Su Yi perked up. "Score. That saves me bus fare. But is this a setup? Like he was waiting for me outside the dorm? Was it on purpose?" The thought made Su Yi hesitate just as she was about to hop in. Zhou Jinchuan smiled, a little helpless. I have some business downtown. If you're not in a rush, never mind. Sui quickly yanked open the back door, hopping in with her luggage. Thanks a bunch, Captain Zhou. Zhou Jinchuan glanced at the empty passenger seat, then looked away. No problem. Hang on tight. He hit the gas and headed for the gate. Seeing he was alone, Sui asked, why didn't Xie come with you? Zhou Jinchuan paused. He did have something to do in the city, but it didn't have to be today. Truth was, he'd driven by her dorm on a whim, and when he spotted her, he decided to stop. How could he have told Xie Xiaojun? I need to get there and back fast. Xie Xiaojun has other stuff to handle. Sui nodded and shut up. Before they reached the gate, they passed by Ruolin and Qin Yunfeng in the yard. Sui frowned. What were the odds? Were they on the same train tomorrow? Actually, Qin Yunfeng had run into Sui at the ticket office that day. He'd made sure to get in line behind her so he could hear what train she booked. That's how they'd ended up with the same tickets. He just wanted to travel together so he could look after her. Plus, going back home together would make things easier to explain to their families. As for going to the city a day early, that was just a coincidence. Ruolin wanted to wander around and buy some last-minute stuff to take home. Hearing the car, Ruolin turned. Spotting Zhou Jinchuan's vehicle, she waved, ready to say hello, but Zhou Jinchuan drove right past without slowing down. As the car sped by, Ruolin realized Sui was in the back, with luggage beside her. Yunfeng, is Sui on the same train as us? I saw her in the back with her bags. Did Captain Zhou give her a ride into the city? Qin Yunfeng hid his surprise. You must have imagined it. What are the chances we're on the same train? And why would Captain Zhou drive all that way just to take her to the city? Ruolin looked puzzled. Maybe he's just dropping her off in town so she can catch the bus. They hurried towards the town's bus station. After looking around, they couldn't find Sui or Zhou Jinchuan's car. Qin Yunfeng said, forget about her. Maybe she caught an earlier bus. Ruolin scoffed. I asked. There hasn't been a bus to the city in ages. That little witch got Captain Zhou to drive her. I don't know what she did to him. Qin Yunfeng grabbed her arm, whispering, hey, this place is packed. Don't talk like that. You want to make things worse. Ruolin bit her lip. I know. Meanwhile, Zhou Jinchuan drove Sui out of the compound. Once the figures in the rearview mirror disappeared, he pulled over. Sui, do you mind sitting up front? Sui had jumped in the back, partly because of her luggage, partly out of habit. Now that she knew Xie Xiaojun wasn't coming, she felt awkward back there, but it was already done. She never thought Zhou Jinchuan would stop the car and ask her to move for such a small thing, and he'd used her full name. Weird. Captain Zhou, aren't you in a hurry? I'm fine back here. We'll be there soon. Usually, Xie Xiaojun drives. I'm not familiar with the roads. Can you ride shotgun and help me out? Sui didn't know what to say, so she got out and climbed into the passenger seat. She took the map and bent her head, looking for the route. Captain Zhou, isn't it just a straight shot to the city? Really? I thought I remembered it wrong. Hope I'm right. Sneaky. Just admit you want me up here. Zhou Jinchuan smiled, keeping his eyes on the road, but taking quick peeks at her. You only packed a few clothes. Enough to go home? Yeah, I'll pick up some more stuff in the city later. Good idea. Qin Yunfeng and his wife might be on the bus tomorrow. Watch out for them. I will. The car went silent again. Zhou Jinchuan paused, then asked, when will you be back? Sui was surprised. I'm not sure yet. I'll see how it goes. If the household registration stuff works out, I'll be back sooner. Zhou Jinchuan nodded, and they drove on in silence. As soon as they hit the city limits, Sui said, Captain Zhou, just drop me off. I can catch a ride and find a place to stay. Go take care of your business. Zhou Jinchuan didn't slow down. I know a pretty clean guesthouse near the train station. I'll take you there. Whatever it is, it can wait a few minutes. At the guest house, Sui checked in. After getting the key, she saw Zhou Jinchuan still waiting outside. She hurried out. Captain Zhou, seriously, go. I'm all set. Zhou Jinchuan hummed. It's freezing out here. You're just a kid. Don't wander around. Be back before dark. Sui laughed. Come on. I'm an adult. I'm not going to get lost. Zhou Jinchuan looked at her seriously. Forgot about the time you got tricked by those guys, and they robbed you and shoved you in the river. Sui was speechless. Okay, it wasn't her, but she couldn't argue. That was my first time out. I'm smarter now. Zhou Jinchuan sighed. Go inside. Call me if you need anything. He watched her go in, then drove off. As soon as Zhou Jinchuan left, Sui felt like a bird escaping its cage. She wanted to fly and see the biggest city in the northwest. She quickly dropped her bags, covered her face with a scarf, and asked the guesthouse staff for directions. Then she headed straight for the busiest part of town. Chapter 79. Bye. You are listening at novelfull.audio. When they got downtown, Suyi's first stop was a pawn shop. She wanted to pawn by Ruolin's watch. Keeps you from cluttering up the space with it, she muttered. By Ruolin might have been a jerk, but her watch was decent, worth maybe $50. Add that to the $100 she'd borrowed from the space, and she had exactly $250. Sui knew from experience that found money burned a hole in your pocket, so they left the pawn shop and headed straight for the East Market, across the overpass. The place was packed with vendors. With Spring Festival coming up, sellers from all over were hawking New Year's goods. Sui strolled around, finally stopping at a truck in the back. It was loaded with everything from food to clothes, a mini-mart on wheels. Young guy stood in the truck bed, calling out to customers. Spotting Sui eyeing his wares, he jumped down and approached her. Looking for something, ma'am? He stopped short, staring. Sui had her face wrapped in a scarf, leaving only her eyes visible, but those eyes were striking, like a winter lake, clear and bright with a hint of sparkle. Sui, focused on the merchandise, barely noticed him. She just asked, curious, this stuff isn't local, is it? You from down south? The young man perked up. Sharp eyes, ma'am. Just brought this stuff up yesterday, still got that southern charm. Su noted the way he said ma'am and frowned. Picked up that term down south too, he seemed like the traveling type, with a bit of a rough edge. Even his smile was a little mischievous. She didn't want to buy anything right now. As she turned to leave, he said earnestly, sorry, force of habit. Comrade, take another look. Good stuff, fair prices. Su figured he was more approachable without the playful act, and his attitude softened a bit. Besides, his merchandise was a cut above what she'd seen at the local co-op. She quickly picked out some basics: a wash basin, a foot tub, towels, soap, a mirror, a thermos. She'd stash them in the space and take them out when she got back to the countryside. Knowing her family, they wouldn't bother getting those things for her. Having stocked up on personal items and noting the good prices, Sue considered buying some goods to sell. Maybe she could set up a stall back in the county and make a killing. Transportation was tough in her hometown, and everything was in short supply. She couldn't afford the big stuff, so she focused on smaller items perfect for the New Year's fair. Sui picked up a bag of melon seeds, intrigued. Usually, melon seeds here were sold loose, and only the plain kind. These were pre-packaged and came in different flavors. Seeing her interest, the young man ripped open a pack and offered it to her. Here, try one. See if you like it. Sue tried one, thought it was pretty good, and asked, how much for the melon seeds? 2 cents a pack. Sui moved on to the headbands, a dazzling display of colors, clips, and bands. She'd never seen anything like it when she bought stuff for her little sister. Plus, there were bright, gauzy hair ties. She asked about the prices. Cheap, 10 cents for the cheapest, 50 for the most expensive. Sui took stock of the items and the prices. Then she turned to the young man. If I wanted to buy from you to sell somewhere else, could you cut me a deal? The young man brightened. Gotcha. Down south, We call that wholesale. Different price for sure. Great. I want 200 packs of these melon seeds. What's your price? He hesitated. 15 cents a bag. Too much. I have to haul them out of town, set up a stall in the cold. I can only sell them for 20 cents a pack. Sui added, get the price right, and I'll be back. I want to buy other stuff later, too. The young man seemed thrilled, grinning. He said, easy enough. Since you're looking to do long-term business, I'll give you my best price, 12 cents a bag. Deal. Sui agreed instantly, then went back to browsing and picking out the hair accessories she liked. After buying everything, Sui had several large bags. She couldn't carry any more. Sui planned to drop them off at the guesthouse first. When the young man saw Sui, he wanted to leave without saying a word. He quickly stopped him. Comrade, I still don't know your name. Please leave your phone number so that we can contact you later. With that said, he handed over the note with his name and phone number written on it. This is my number, my name is Jiang Yuan. Sui was just being polite, and had no plans to resell small commodities in the future. It just happened to happen and I wanted to make a fortune along the way. I have no intention of contacting him again in the future, he just said perfunctorily, just have your number. I'll contact you next time if I need you. That person probably also saw Sui's coldness and perfunctoriness. He suddenly became a little anxious. Comrade, I still have a lot of good things that I haven't brought out here. By the way, you lesbians all like to eat bananas. I have a friend who said they were bananas that just arrived today. I'll take you to see them. Look, Sui was about to leave, but when she heard about bananas, her eyes suddenly lit up. He stopped. Banana? Where did you get it? In her impression, bananas were extremely rare in the north in the 1980s, especially in this time of year. Jiang Yuan was interested in her, so he grinned and said, it doesn't matter where you get them. They are all legal and good bananas. How about I give them to you at the wholesale price? Sui nodded. Let's take a look at the goods first. Okay, help me look after the stall, and I'll call someone over right away. After saying that, he ran away quickly. Sui looked at his fast-running back, and then at the cart of goods next to him. I couldn't help but clicked my tongue. Why didn't this man look so smart? Chapter 80. Why is Zhou Jinchuan back again? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Sui didn't have to wait long before she saw Jiang Yuan jogging over. Trailing behind him was a guy on a tricycle, the cart piled high with bananas. Jiang Yuan grabbed a banana, handed it to her, and simply said, this is my buddy Liuzi's stuff. Try it. Sui took it, eyeing the banana. It was speckled with black spots and didn't look too appealing, but it tasted all right. How much are you selling these for? She asked. To be honest, we need to get at least $1 to break even. We're selling them for $1 a pound, but no one's biting. Sui paused. That doesn't sound very profitable. Is this your first time selling bananas? Liuzi jumped in, lamenting, man, we got these down south when they were still green. They turned black in just a few days. We're barely making 20 cents a pound, and we're working our tails off, but we can't move. Sui silently thought, wow, this dude isn't the sharpest tool in the shed. Jiang Yuan gave a sheepish grin. My friends and I are all the same. We're honest, that's our best quality. But you tasted the banana. It's just the skin that looks bad. The inside's fine. While they were busy pitching, Sui discreetly peeled off a piece of banana skin and slipped it into her space. Then, just as quietly, she took it back out. Sure enough, the black banana peel, now touched by the spiritual spring water, had turned golden, just as she suspected. Now Sui felt a lot more confident. $1's too much. I can't pay that. We weren't planning on gouging you. We're not even trying to make a profit. We just want to cut our losses. How about 50 cents a pound? 50 cents is still too high. These bananas are going to rot. No one will buy them if I take them anywhere else. I only make 20 cents a pound. What about me? I still have a ton of them back home. 20 cents, Liuzi looked at Jiang Yuan, aghast. He was practically crying. She's eating the banana peel and all. That's cold. Sui chuckled. You know I'm planning to sell them out of town. You also know your bananas are going bad if you don't sell them, and you still want me to take them off your hands. Who's being cold here? Jiang Yuan laughed, trying to smooth things over. We're gonna be business partners, right? Let's split the difference. How about 30 cents a pound? Deal. 30 cents it is. Sui agreed. I'll take the whole cart, but you guys have to help me get it to the guest house. Alright. Sui loaded her other purchases onto the tricycle and followed Liuzi to the guest house. Jiang Yuan watched them go, itching to ask for Sui's name and number, but afraid of getting burned again. He was so frustrated he could barely stand it. Meanwhile, Sui got back to the guest house just as the front desk staff was heading out for dinner. She quickly had Liuzi move the bananas up to the second floor. As soon as Liuzi left with the money, Sui locked the door and zapped the bananas into her space. Then, she jumped in after them. The spiritual spring bubbled and gurgled, and the air was thick with its misty vapor. Not only could it keep regular food fresh, but even bananas with black spots turned golden again. She peeled one and tasted it. It even seemed sweeter than before. Sui happily munched on the banana, wishing Xiao Wu and Wan Wan were there. They would love this. Too bad she had to wait until after the new year to go back. Just as she was thinking this, she heard a knock at the door. Sui went to the door and asked, "Who is it?" "It's the front desk. Someone's here to see you." Sui was surprised. She didn't know anyone here. Could it be that banana guy from earlier? She quickly answered and ran to the window, spotting Zhou Jinchuan back. Sui had been wondering how to get the bananas to her kids sooner, and now here was Zhou Jinchuan. She couldn't have been happier. She rushed downstairs. "Captain Zhou. What are you doing here?" Seeing her excitement, Zhou Jinchuan couldn't help but grin. "I finished up early. I figured it wouldn't be right for you to go back empty-handed, so I picked up a few things for you to take back." He started pulling bags of stuff out of his vehicle. Seeing the pile of bags, Sui quickly stopped him. "No, really, it's not necessary. I already bought stuff. You should keep it for yourself." "Ugh, my family is a bunch of users. Giving them good stuff is like casting pearls before swine." Sui hadn't said much about her family before. Zhou Jinchuan knew they favored her brothers over her and weren't exactly nice to her, but he didn't realize it was this bad. His face darkened. "Are you sure you'll be alright going back alone?" Sui smiled, tight-lipped. "It's my family. Why wouldn't I be? Anyway, it's the last time. If they don't let me have an easy time, their whole family will feel my wrath." Zhou Jinchuan's eyes narrowed. "Take this stuff. It'll make it easier to give gifts to the village elders." Sui looked at him, surprised. Giving gifts? From him? But then she shrugged and took it. "Alright, I'll take it, and we'll see." She remembered the bananas in her space. "Hold on, Captain Zhou. I just bought some stuff, too. You can take it back with you." She started to head back upstairs. Zhou Jinchuan grabbed the bags from her. "I'll help you carry them up and then take them down when I leave." Sui hesitated. "Okay, then." The front desk clerk saw Zhou Jinchuan in his uniform, carrying so many things. He didn't say a word. They had just reached the top of the stairs when Qin Yunfeng and Bai Ruolin walked into the guest house. "Yunfeng, look. Isn't that Captain Zhou and Sui? Why are they going upstairs together?" Qin Yunfeng stared in disbelief. "They're probably just helping Sui carry things." "Yeah, that must be it. See all the stuff they're carrying. Let's just check in." Bai Ruolin fumed, remembering the bags they'd been carrying. Sui, that poor thing. Zhou Jinchuan must have bought all that stuff for her. That hussy. Sui had no idea that Qin Yinfeng and Bai Ruolin were staying at the same guesthouse. As soon as they got into her room, she used the time while Zhou Jinchuan was putting things down to grab a bunch of bananas from her space. "Captain Zhou, I found these bananas downtown. I thought they'd be perfect for Xiao Wu and Wan. Zhou Jinchuan raised an eyebrow. "Yep, just for the kids." Nothing for him. After giving him the bananas, Sui rummaged through the bag again. "Hold on, there's more." Zhou Jinchuan cleared his throat. "Don't worry about it." He watched as Sui pulled out some hair clips and flowers. "The new year's coming. Nuan will love these." Zhou Jinchuan.